Hey guys, right before the split, I was in Dime. Now I'm in Go. I decided to try and solo queue as much as possible so that I can get you some tips on how to get to Plat. The first thing I always do is I try to establish voice communication right away. I try to do it in the selection screen and then I try to do it while we drop. It's extremely important that you talk to your team. When you start talking, this encourages your team to start talking back, and talking to each other is one of the best things you can do to improve your chances of winning. This allows you to discuss tactics, set up plays to inform each other of things that are too complicated to be translated with a ping. It's not the end of the world if nobody answers. Maybe this way you get to be like the unofficial leader of the squad. Most of the time, if I'm the only one talking on my mic, people will follow my commands and my ideas, at least up to a point, even if nobody answers. Just by hearing your voice, they'll feel a friendly presence around them. This will encourage them to play as a team in most situations. This is like the most important thing you might want in solo queue ranked. Another thing that I like to do when I play solo queue is I like to pick a soft landing spot as jump master. Even if I'm not the jump master, I will try to persuade the team to pick a soft landing spot. There are a few reasons to do that. Your teammate's skill is unknown. This means if they suck, you're going to get destroyed if you drop in a hot zone. And you might still get some points, or at least lose less points, if you pick a softer landing spot. Maybe by the time you meet your first enemy, the game will already be down to 10 teams or less. You don't need to run if someone's dropping with you. If just one team is contesting, that's fine. If the area is larger and there's enough loot for everyone, even 2 teams contesting is not that bad. In general, it is much easier to get kills early game than it is in the mid game and late game. Just don't go into the super high traffic areas. I'm sure you know them on both maps. My next tip is something to do with fights specifically. Stick to high ground and stick to cover. This is extremely important. It will win you way more fights. Just don't be the guy that's bloodthirsty and runs into the open field and dies. Nobody wants that. As you go up in ranks, one of the key things you will notice with players and masters and predators and even diamonds is the fact that they have better awareness of the importance of your position on the battlefield. This is why, if you watch the top tournaments, everyone is focusing on positioning rather than loot. Loot is good, but it's not what wins fights. If you have a very good high ground, it's mostly good to stick to it. You only need to get away from it if you're rotating to another area, or if you can switch to a different high ground that gives you better positioning. High ground lets you go into cover easier. It makes you much harder to hit from their point of view. So yeah, high ground is amazing. Cover is like worse high ground. Sometimes maybe you're fighting inside a building or inside of a tunnel and you don't really have any good options for high ground, but there's almost always a good option for some good cover. Especially when you get into a shotgun duel, jiggle peeking outside of cover is one of the best ways you can win that fight. Jiggle peeking is when you show yourself only to shoot and move back into cover in between shots. It's extremely potent with the Mastiff and it's pretty good with the EVA 8 as well. My next tip is that you need to learn to heal in the middle of a fight. I already emphasized high ground and cover. One of the main uses for both of them is the ability they give you to heal in the middle of a battle. Sometimes you down your opponent in a single magazine and the feeling is amazing, but sometimes you just crack their armor or maybe you lose the duel. That's fine. If you're close to cover or if you're in the high ground, you can just go back and heal fast. There's almost always enough time for a shield cell, and a lot of the time you can also pop a shield battery. You need to balance this with the needs of the team in the fight. It's very rare, for example, that you have enough time to pop a Phoenix kit in the middle of a fight, because your teammates will need to heal as well. So even if you don't heal up fully, just popping a cell and going back into the fight is sometimes better than popping off like a whole Phoenix kit. The guns kill relatively slowly if you compare that to Counter-Strike or Valorant, and this is why healing is extremely important. Usually you will survive getting shot multiple times, and this is what allows you to heal. If you watch any top player, you'll notice that they have this very specific rhythm where they go into a fight, they pop off some shots, maybe they down someone, and then they heal. Speaking of pro players, here's my next tip. Learn to armor swap. Armor swapping is when instead of healing, you get the shield from a death box nearby or just from a random loot spawn. This is one of the most recognizable signature moves employed by top players. It allows them to stay in the fight longer, it allows them to spend less time on healing and more time on shooting. My next tip is stick with your team. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to stick with your team. If you want to be successful in solo queue, you need to compensate for the lack of communication and the fact that you don't know the guys. So you need to meet them halfway. Even if they run off into a strange direction, you should put in a good effort to follow them and stick with them. Even if their playstyle is different, for example, maybe you want to be very aggressive and they're more campy, or maybe it's the other way around. Try to adjust yourself to the team. This will allow you to win way more fights. While you shouldn't be a coward and you should always try to play with your team, you should also know when to run. Tell your squad mates to back off if you think it's appropriate. Maybe the fight is not going your way. Maybe the fight is going out of control. Maybe you see more squads incoming. There's no shame in just backing off into a better position, healing up, and re-engaging the fight from a new angle. This is probably going to be the most controversial tip in the video, but it's ranked, so I have to be honest with you. Don't be ashamed to rat. Sometimes you get split up with your team and they die. Sometimes it's just a lucky break that you managed to survive with a few hits left in you. If you can, you should always collect their banners and try to resurrect them. But sometimes the opposing team will stay there to prevent you from picking up the banners. It's a good value play to try and survive as long as possible in this type of situation. Each game costs you some RP to enter, so it's best to at least recoup them. This is good for you and it's good for your fallen teammates as well. When this happens, I usually try to pick up a sniper rifle so that I have a better chance at picking off random kills from big fights at a distance, and I try to third party in a safe way as much as possible. My last tip is not only specific to Apex, I think it applies to any competitive game that you try. Don't play if you feel too tired or if you get tilted. I know, you just want to get in a few more games, you just want to grind out that RP late at night, but the reality is that being tired is probably the worst thing you can be in a competitive video game. The only worst thing you can do is being drunk or high. If you want to play inebriated, that's fine. Just go into a pub and have fun. Whenever you play tired, you're going to have slow reactions, you're going to make worse decisions, and you're gonna get frustrated pretty fast because you're gonna lose RP. This gets me on to the other point, getting tilted. Maybe it feels like today you have less luck than usual. Maybe it feels like the game is punishing you today for, I don't know, something you did. Whenever you feel that strong emotions overwhelm you, that's a good time to stop. Maybe stop for 10, 15, 20 minutes, see if you calm down, and go back in. If you don't calm down, go watch YouTube or Netflix. Don't waste your time playing angry. It's more likely that you'll be toxic to your teammates, it's more likely that you'll make bad decisions, it's more likely that you'll be unhappy. Playing tilted is the worst way you can spend your time and energy. I hope you found these tips helpful. If you have questions or suggestions, don't be afraid to leave them in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell button.